Man, this Persona 5 Switch situation is so strange to follow because if you remember last year, people were talking about rumors that were going around about Persona 5 possibly releasing on the Switch, and that makes a lot of sense considering their handheld device, the Vita, which is where they put Persona 4 Golden. They don't have that anymore. Sony pretty much done with the Vita completely, so now we're seeing the effect of things like Catherine Full Body instead of coming west on the Vita. They decided to pretty much scrap that, and they're just moving it over on the Switch, and that's kind of a reason people are now expecting, or at least even still thinking, that Persona could end up making the jump to the Switch, mostly because there's nowhere else to put it that would be a handheld or a portable device, and it's something that the Persona series has actually benefited from pretty well, but it seems strange because Sega and Atlus are hesitant, unsure. There's been rumors about Sony possibly having a deal with them, but from what I can tell, I've never seen any real proof of it. We're just assuming it because we want to give Sega and Atlus the benefit of the doubt that they know what they're doing, and that's something I've also questioned at times when Sega seems to struggle because of themselves. Even recently saying that, sales for some of these games, which includes Persona 5 Royal, came in under expectations. But let's talk a little bit about something new that happened today, because it's very dramatic, I will say that, for a game that has already released 3 different times on the PS3, PS4, and then again on the PS4. To ask something like this is very odd, but I will say this is from Atlus US, so their Western branch, not Atlus Japan. Atlus Japan makes all the decisions for this stuff, so keep that in mind as well. This isn't something that is going to be just done by Atlus US. They need Atlus Japan to make these decisions. They are the decision makers, essentially. But let's actually take a look at what was said here. So during a Persona 5 Royal preview event that took place earlier this month, according to IGN, they talked a little bit about the idea of the Switch getting Persona, and this is what they had to say. This was with the Atlus communications manager, Ari Advincula. And when they asked about this, she said, "I am a strong believer in never, ever give up on hope." Okay, so this is coming from, again, the communications manager for Atlus US. Okay, he's in the Western branch, not a decision maker in Atlus Japan. If this was coming from Atlus Japan, it would be really, really weird. This is still strange because this is seemingly their communications manager in the US, who is also pushing for the Switch version of Persona to eventually release. I almost wonder if Atlus US looks at this and goes, wait, why aren't they doing that? Because now it's getting a little different with the Switch exploding in terms of its install size, and Persona, which would be able to heavily leverage the large install base on the Switch. There's a chance, because they wanted to resell the game again, Persona 5 Royal, they could have just put that out as just straight up DLC, right? Like that, rather than do a whole nother release. And I know Atlus will do that at times anyway, but they could have put it out as DLC, but they wanted to resell it. And I do wonder if it would have sold significantly better if it came out alongside of it on the Switch for possibly new owners to pick up. I think it would have. I think it would have done better. And I think they also would have been talking a bit differently about some of their sales for their games previously to investors. Now, she went on a little further here with IGN saying, you want what you want, and if you don't let us know it, we're never going to be able to make it. It's important to always voice your opinion. I had to kind of pause a little bit there, because then she goes on to say, keep telling us what you want. I think the idea here, because she also goes on and says not the decision maker, I think the idea here is people in Atlus, their US branch, the Western branch, they do want this to come to the Switch. However, I think they are also trying to convince Atlus Japan, because maybe even they're not as up to date on what could be happening here. Like I said, they're not the decision maker, so they might just need this to stay in conversation as maybe they try to convince them. I feel like they are looking at this as well in Atlus US, probably a lot of people there. And if this is similar to how Nintendo US is, the Nintendo of America, they are not the decision makers for a lot of stuff either that is in Japan, and they just try to communicate to the Western audience those decisions, like the phone app. A lot of people apparently in Nintendo of America looked at that and said, how am I supposed to sell this or show this to the people in the US who are used to voice chat on things like the Xbox and the PlayStation, and all they would say to them from Japan, Nintendo Japan, is we'll figure it out. Try to figure out how to spin this with PR to tell them. And I do feel like it's a similar situation with Atlus, where those in the US are saying, hey, like, people want this. And I know that she's saying, hey, make sure you keep voicing your opinion, and people are saying, just Google it. It's out there. Everyone has asked for it. They need the conversation to continue if they are going to keep pushing internally, because as soon as it dies down, you'd probably see Atlus Japan kind of move on, which is still really weird to me considering Persona 5 Scramble is going to the Switch, and we're going to be seeing sales numbers for it. And I do wonder if in Japan it outsells the PlayStation 4 version on the Switch. So let's say we get the sales charts. It comes out with Famitsu, and over the course of the first month of it being on sale, which is usually when things sell really well, and then of course it usually dies off from there, and we get a few here and there as we go forward for it to eventually hit, a certain amount, whether it's 1 million or something. I do wonder if it comes out in Japan, it outsells the PS4 version on the Switch. If at that time Atlus Japan looks at that and says, maybe we should look into Persona 5, because they can re-release it once again. By the way, they will re-release that game how many times? Yes. I mean, most people I think have played it who want to play it, because you would just buy it on the PS4. Or like when it came out, I just bought it on the PS4. But I do know that there are also people who prefer to play those RPGs. Like that is a long game. That it'll take you a while. I know there are a lot of people who would like to also have it with them if they commute and they're like on a train or a bus or something, and they have quite a bit of downtime. Yeah, I get why you would want to have that on the Switch as a portable device to help you get through those RPGs. It is an RPG that's good for a handheld device. That's why Persona 4 Golden was so good. I love that game on the Vita. And yes, I would like to see what has become the Vita's successor with something like the Switch Lite get the next Persona 5. They'll call it something else. They like Persona 4 Golden. They'll call Persona 5 something. It probably won't just be Persona 5 Switch or something. They'll put like a little tagline on there. And that, of course, is if it ever happens. And it's weird to ask that, considering it's, to all of us, it's pretty easy to say, hey, there's a bunch of money sitting over there if you just port it to the Switch. And it would be, I think it would be interesting to see if a lot of people would buy it, because there is a massive outcry right now for this game going to the Switch, and if they would benefit from it. I feel like they would. Like, I think they would at least make their money back and possibly build up a whole other fan base on that system, the Switch, for whenever Persona 6 happens, if that is just a straight multi-plat game. The thing I see here is there's a lot of money on the table for Sega and Atlus if they want to port it to the Switch and the PC. I understand why they might look at the Xbox and say, well, it has no footprint or presence in Japan, so we would really only be porting it for regions like Europe and the US, and we're not 100% sure how that would do there anyway. I mean, even Nier, which came out on the Xbox, didn't come out physically. It was just digital. And Yakuza, I feel like, had a massive push by Microsoft to get that one done. Phantasy Star Online 2, at least, was being pushed by Microsoft, so I will give them credit. Phil Spencer is making the trek over to Japan to make this stuff happen, but Atlus and Sega are going to have to step back and kind of look at the big picture here and decide if this is something they want to do, or maybe we eventually get some kind of information showing that Sony really did have a hand in Persona 5 in some way, whether it was funding or something like that. That's the only thing that makes sense now. Either Sony really did fund this thing or work or pay for exclusivity or do something behind the scenes there to make sure it's only ever on PlayStation, or Sega and Atlus are just doing some of the weirdest stuff I've ever seen for a business. I even think Shin Megami Tensei 5, that should be multiplat. They released Persona Q2 as a 3DS only game last year. Like, why? Why didn't you at least move it to the Switch as well? Also, maybe move it to the PlayStation, move it to PC. These are games that appeal to a niche audience, and they should be on as many platforms as possible in order to get the amount of sales that they can to continue on. Like, unless you're getting funding from one of these companies to help the development, I'm not really sure why you keep it to any one platform. And that includes any of these games. Shin Megami, like I said, Persona Q, Persona 5. I think all these games should be everywhere. But let me know what you guys think about this situation with Persona 5 now being asked once again by a communications manager for Atlus US to let them know that Switch fans want it. Look, I do think Ari really, really wants this to still happen, right? And I think they're just trying to keep the conversation going. And to be fair to her, IGN was the one who brought it up. Because I don't know, it's a Persona 5 Royal preview event, and they roll in asking when it's coming to the Switch or if it's ever going to come to the Switch. I guess that still has to do with the game itself, but they were there talking about the game that was coming out or is out as a preview event. Still strange to me, but I guess there is some more information there. They at least haven't given up on it internally, it seems. It's just the wrong branch that is talking about it. Got to get Atlus Japan to kind of think more about it, and maybe they are. They had that survey. They have Catherine Full Body coming to the Switch, so you never know. Thanks, guys, for watching. Let me know what you think about this down below. Make sure you like the video on the way out if you enjoyed it. Dislike it if not. I'll see you guys next time.